Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game, with me, Kevin Day, and him, Kieran Maguire. And Kieran, are you looking forward to our club's annual beautiful game of trying to stay in the Premier League?
Sort of, Kevin. I mean, it's not the normal amount of adrenaline that's coursing through the veins, even though we're starting off with a home fixture, the same as Palace, which is always you think is a great way to start the season. It's far better than starting at home than away. But I'm hoping I'll have some sort of epiphany moment and get going. But more importantly than that, I believe you've got some news.
Really? I was not expecting you to raise that subject, Kieran. Yeah, see, if people want to moan about our acting skills on the Audi advert, they can moan about that acting skill even more now, can't they? Yes, Kieran, I do have some news. I'm joining you in the Authors Club. You'll have another book to put up behind you when you're on Sky and BT Sport every day. Because, yes, my book's been announced this week, as you kindly pointed out on Twitter. It's out on the 1st of October. It's called Who Are You? It's a comedy history of 92 football clubs and why you shouldn't support them. And I'm hoping Steve Dale may get a copy, because the last chapter is a very angry one about the demise of Bury. So I quite like the idea that someone sends Steve and he goes to the toilet and has things. I just have a quiet break and lose. I'm getting a lot of stick. Just flick through this book. I'll just go to the last chapter. Oh dear. That's available from the first.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Kieran. Yeah, it's available to. Well, as you know, you're one of the few people that knew about it, because I've been hopping from foot to foot for 6 months, desperately trying to tell people about it. But yeah, I'm very proud of my baby, and it's available to pre-order on Amazon and Waterstones now. And it'll be. This is the bit I've always wanted to say. It will be available in all good bookshops and some bad ones.
Excellent. Yes, my publisher had a cunning plan that my book was never available in any bookstores in the whole of the UK, and he thought this was a unique approach. And I'm going, well, I don't quite work out what the advantage is to that. So clearly your publisher's slightly more clued into people buy books from bookstores idea than mine.
Well, on the other hand, Kieran, you're an accountant. You know all about creating demand. I mean, there's nothing more likely to create demand than going into a shop saying, have you got Kieran Maguire's book? And they go, no, we don't have it. And they go, well, I'm desperate to get it now. There's an element of, again, this is going to date us as well, but it's like the J.R. Hartley advert. Fly Fishing by J.R. Hartley. Let's get back into the modern days, Kieran.
Yes.
We spent a lot of time in the 80s on the last pod, so let's get back in the modern days. It is News Day, and later in the episode, nice, Brighton's kit's got us getting. It's quite funky, isn't it? Nice. It's talking to the 80s. It's a proper 80s throwback kit, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. If only the collar was slightly bigger and floppier, I could have sort of done a mini Sweeney approach.
Yes, and I like the fact that a curmudgeonly Brighton fan pointed out on social media that the last time you wore that kit, you got relegated. So, fingers crossed. It is News Day, but later in the episode, we'll be getting an update from Caroline Molyneux, who's the chair of the Wigan Athletic Supporters Club, about the shenanigans that are still going on that we thought weeks ago would be resolved. But speaking of Wigan, Kieran, someone is doing quite well out of the situation, aren't they? My eyebrows had a proper old-timey workout yesterday when you showed me this.
Yes, the administrators' proposals went up on Companies House at the weekend. So as I had a moment or two to spare, I decided to download them, go into the small print, and towards the back, there is some quite entertaining stuff. The administrators, who are charging £358 an hour on average, they are going to make just over £1 million from the administration of Wigan Athletic, but because of what they say is the risk in taking on the appointment, they're then going to uplift their fees by a third, and potentially they could be taking around about 1.35 million as a result of running the club. So there's some good news for Range Rover dealers in the Lancashire area, and as well as one set of silver-tongued chums of ours. The legal fees are looking quite entertaining as well. The legal fees are estimated to be £800,000 in respect of the administration. But if the club is sold successfully, the lawyers then get a 25% bonus.
Wow.
So that will take them up to around about £1 million. On top of that, there were legal disbursements of £175,000, which apparently was getting a council's opinion as to whether or not they should appeal against the EFL's 12-point deduction. And then they estimate a further £200,000 for the EFL appeal itself. So that's an awful. You put those two together, that's in excess of £2.5 million for the legal and the accounting professions. I did notice that the administrators are claiming £2,500 for travel to Wigan and back. Now, I travel to the northwest quite often, and we know that Guy is carried around in a golden handcart, and that can't be cheap to him. But £2,500 for travel to Wigan and back, that seems pretty high. The wages for the club they estimate to be £2.5 million, so they're going to be paying less money out in wages to players and all of the staff at the club than the Silver Tongue friends are taking home themselves. And then along come the football agents who look as if they're going to trouser somewhere between £50,000 to £250,000, depending upon which players are sold. So, I'm not criticising these people. They are professionals. I did used to work in that profession myself, but I'll be honest, I was just too soft for it. The prospect of people losing the jobs, the prospect of creditors being stiffed, it was, I couldn't sleep at night at times. So I bailed out many years ago. So it is. There are some tough times, but £358 per hour does seem pretty stiff. But they bill by the 6 minutes, which is quite scary. One thought was to actually get the administrators onto the show, but when I realised they were in fact charging per 6 minutes for an interview, I just didn't felt that would be helping Wigan Athletic on the back of that.
Yeah, we all know you're the black sheep of your South London family, Kieran, because of your kindness and warmth and generosity, and you say you're not criticising the administrators, but your voice sounds like it sort of is. And there are two big questions here. This 25% bonus, it's 25% of what? Of the selling price for the club?
No, according to this, and I might have misread it, it's they estimate the legal fees will be $800,000, and then the lawyers will charge 25% on top of that for a successful sale. So that will go up from $800,000 to $1 million for the lawyers, and the administrators have only put in their basic fees of £358, and that's an average. Some of the staff are on more than that, but if they do have a successful sale, and they say it's because they're not guaranteed payment at the end of this deal, then that average goes up to £476, which if all that you do in life is count beans, which is what accountants do, that's a lot of beans you can now buy.
But also this idea of suddenly charging more because there's risk involved. Surely if you're an administrator, there's risk involved in any job you take on, isn't there?
There is. Normally it will be underwritten by a bank or by the people that appoint the administrators. So there could be something here which isn't guaranteed. But my experience and understanding of the profession is that just like you, Kevin, you wouldn't necessarily take on work if the person said, "Well, I might pay you or I might not." You say, "Well, let's just have a chat about this." That does come back to us getting paid on this podcast, which we know, but we're both waiting for. It does seem a strange thing to have. Normally, if you're doing jobs by the hour, you charge by the hour and get on with it.
Yeah, you kind of pulled the rug from under your own feet there, didn't you? But when you suddenly realised that we're 9 months into a podcast that we didn't ask for any guarantee to get money from the start. We're laughing about this, and we shouldn't be really, because is there any danger that the added costs involved could could put off a potential buyer for the club. If they say they need to shell out another 3 million, 4 million quid or whatever it is to pay various bonuses, could that put some people off buying the club?
No, it won't actually impact upon the selling price of the football club. It will impact upon the distribution of money following the sale. And potentially, I mean, if Al Young, our mysterious Hong Kong investor, if he's going to be paying for all of this, frankly, I don't care. Double the fees for all the distress you've caused, as far as I'm concerned. If it comes out of the total proceeds of the sale of the football club, the sale of the properties of the football club, and so on, it could potentially result in the unsecured creditors, the people that provide the coaches to matches, the pies and all that stuff, if they end up with less than 25 pence in the pound in what they're owned, then the EFL could slap a further 15-point penalty on Wigan. So we could have a further football impact upon a club which, to a certain extent, is struggling to get a manager, struggling to get players and so on for the forthcoming season.
Right, so before we start on other news, Kieran, there is a news story that I need to explain to people. For some reason, Croydon Council, for the third time in about 4 years, are resurfacing the road outside where I live, or my house, if you prefer. So there will be some extraneous noise as a massive digger thing goes up and down the road, being watched in a pleasant 70s sitcom style by about 12 other blokes leaning on shovels. The big,
wouldn't happen with an Audi A3.
It certainly wouldn't. An Audi A3 would just glide over the surface.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wouldn't cost you £2,500 to get to Wigan in an Audi A3. Are we still sponsored by them? I haven't checked. Anyway, the big news story, Kieran, is as we suspected last week, the Premier League has confirmed that all 28 Premier League fixtures in September will be televised after all. Yes,
I think this is a sensible decision. I think really, to a certain extent, it was the only decision that could have been made. What alarmed me, and I suspect you as well, was the fact that it took until the 8th of September to clarify. So Sky are now going to get an extra 6 matches, BT Sport 3, Amazon are getting 1, and the BBC are getting 1. Now, whether these extra matches are going to be on the behind a paywall or whether they're going to be free to air, I don't think that's been quite clarified. Clearly, the BBC is going to be free to air. Some of the matches are taking place at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. I think Palace's match against Southampton, that's going to be the first 3 p.m. match on a Saturday of the season. It is the right thing to do because we know where we are in the pecking order in terms of popularity with TV companies. We know that Manchester United and Liverpool and Chelsea and Manchester City and so on, most of their matches are going to be on anyway. But if you go back to, I've actually got the figures here for 2018-19, Bournemouth, Southampton and Huddersfield, those 3 clubs, they were only shown 8 times each out of 38 matches. So if less than a quarter of your matches were going to be broadcast live, then that would have been very harsh on fans of those clubs. They'd effectively been discriminated against. So I think the Premier League have done the right thing here. It's only to the end of September. What's going to happen from October onwards? It could be what this is doing is buying a bit of breathing space for both the clubs and the Premier League in order to bring some form of streaming product, as we've seen with the EFL and iFollow, into the Premier League. So perhaps you end up paying a tenner a match, or a tenner a match is deducted from your season ticket price if you so desire. For those people that haven't got television, I believe the Premier League are also making effectively all matches available on a combination of 5 Live and TalkSport, which again is to be applauded. Not everybody can afford subscription TV. People might choose not to have it as well. So I think when there's very little interesting live broadcast, at least this is the right thing that's being done.
You would kind of hope, Kieran, that it would be free to air because it's going to sort of defeat the object of it. I mean, if the Palace game, for example, on Saturday at 3:00 kickoff, is only available on BT Sport or Sky, and you have to pay for it, then the chances are that there's going to be pubs all over South London and Croydon with the curtains drawn, with quite a lot of people in the pub who shouldn't be watching the game clandestinely anyway. So that would seem to be a strange decision if they're not all available.
Yes, and I think there is some form of governmental pressure, I think, being put on the Premier League to come to this deal. And remember, from next Monday, there is going to be a change to the social distancing rules, which is going to reduce. And I think this is actually really bad news for us as football fans. If they're introducing this in September, in terms of the number of people gathering together, the prospect of decent-sized crowds returning later in the season, or we were hoping, we sort of got our hopes up that October could have been a bit of a turnaround, has got to be dashed. I did hear Matt Hancock on Breakfast TV this morning, and speaking as a recent grandparent, he advised me that grandparents are normally older than their grandchildren, which I hadn't actually realised, and so therefore, my confidence has gone soaring as a result of hearing that particular snippet.
Well, I mean, you're an accountant. Of all people, you know that a grandparent is normally older than a grandchild. Yeah, it's funny. Clubs. Despite the new Matt Hancock announcement, clubs are still bullish about getting people back in October. Certainly, Palace are just one of many clubs who started selling season tickets this week. Slightly confusingly, I have got one just in case. But presumably, once a number of people are allowed in, 300 people are going to be in the Celtic game on Saturday. Once clubs do allow any number of people in, even if it's a tiny number, then any idea of free-to-air TV will probably go out the window, won't it?
I think there's an element of yes and no here. If the numbers are going to be restricted to the low thousands, and you think about both our clubs, we both got 20,000 plus season ticket holders, and if only 5,000 or 6,000 people can attend. You're going to want to be there. I can always watch Glastonbury on TV.
Yeah.
I'd much rather be there watching the acts themselves. So as football fans, I think we enjoy that live experience, which was also, of course, will be an incredible novelty for us all. It's now 6-7 months. I've never gone that long in my life without seeing a live football match, being there and getting everything which we enjoy from it. So I think we'll just have to wait and see with regards to what's going to happen, but probably less free to air. Certainly if they can stream and charge, which I think is the ideal model, or the ideal solution from a club's perspective, then yes, the free to air will disappear.
Okay. And the Premier League has also relaxed its financial rules due to coronavirus.
Yeah, this was something I've only seen this published once. This was in the Times. Martin Ziegler spotted this one. And it now looks as if financial fair play rules, and this is mirroring what has happened under UEFA. The financial fair play rules are now going to be assessed over 2 seasons instead of 1. And this might explain some of the behaviour we've seen. Chelsea lost over £100 million in 2019, which would have not done their FFP calculations a great deal of good. But they've spent an awful lot in the transfer market, albeit they've also sold Hazard, of course, and that ought to be taken. But I think the most noticeable impact on this is Everton. Everton lost £112 million last season, and they've been noticeably quiet in the transfer market this summer. As soon as that pronouncement went through in terms of the relaxation of FFP, effectively it was time to spaff as far as the transfer market is concerned. So they signed James Rodriguez, they've signed Decore, they've signed Alan from Brazil, which of course cue corny jokes. So that they sort of, as soon as that announcement went out, £60 million, let's get that checkbook a flying.
That would be great, wouldn't it, if they'd accidentally signed Alan Brazil? Wouldn't that be? And poor old Alan from Brazil was doing the TalkSport morning show. One of our listeners suggested this week via Twitter that we should probably consider a separate weekly pod for Derby County alone, just so we could keep it, ring fence it from the rest of it. Because again, Another week goes by and there's more Derby County news. And I think we weren't predicting this one, to be honest. However, normally we get a lot of things right when we look into our crystal balls. Leave it, please, Kieran. But the EFL is appealing against the outcome of the Independent Disciplinary Commission over the misconduct charges it brought against Derby County.
Yeah, well, it's appealing part of the ruling.
Okay.
It's accepted the stadium sale. So the sale of Pride Park for £81 million has been accepted because apparently it's going to have a sliding roof, and therefore it's going to be multifunction and worth a lot more money. But looking at this, this does appear to be a bit of a spat between Mel Morris, the owner of Derby County, who describes himself as enemy of the EFL state. And he did this in the tribunal. Yeah, that's pretty. Rick Parry's 65, so it's like a pair of old rotting stags having a bit of a bust up. The appeal is going to be in respect of your favourite football accounting subject, which is, of course,
amortisation.
Amortisation, indeed, yes. So, I said at the time, the amortisation policy appears to be unique. It's certainly very creative, but that doesn't mean that it's illegal. The EFL have probably taken a second opinion on this because their expert witness proved to be not too much of an expert by all accounts, and didn't really know what the role of an expert witness was. So he was made to look a bit of a chump. Derby have come out with all guns blazing on their website that they are disappointed, which is, of course, media speak for totally pissed off. Yeah. They say this will be a waste of resources. The initial appeal or the initial charges. We don't know how much the total cost is, but looking at what it cost Wigan, clearly we're probably talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands. They say it will be an unnecessary distraction to what's happening on the pitch, which I find a bit far-fetched. And, of course, they say it will be vigorously defended. Vigorously is another word for expensively defended by the club. So, it's going to run. We could end up in a situation similar to what we saw with Birmingham City, where the EFL spend a lot of money. They managed to get the initial verdict overturned. And as a result of that, they were told, don't be naughty. They were fined, they didn't have a points deduction, and so on.
Mel Morris is doing quite a good PR job on persuading Derby fans that there is a vendetta, if you like, against their club. But if I was a Derby fan, I wouldn't take a lot of persuading, because it does seem the EFL can't leave them alone, doesn't it? Or shouldn't leave them alone, it would be your view.
Well, if you're within the rules, you're within the rules. Yeah. I think, to me, the issue is, if you have a good set of rules, then you don't have this problem arising.
Yeah.
So, why did the EFL allow the sale of grounds from 2016 onwards, when previously they were specifically prohibited from FFP? So, that would have saved an absolute fortune. With respect to the amortisation issue, if you're dealing with HMRC, what they say is that we don't give amortisation is very similar to depreciation. HMRC say we don't give a flying fig what your depreciation or amortisation policy is. We're going to apply our policy to the numbers, and you can do what the hell you want in the accounts. So why didn't the EFL simply say amortisation has to be straight line over the player's contract to a zero value, and then there's no opportunity for argument? So the EFL rules are weak.
Okay, well, we did. I was going to say let's leave it there, but we won't leave it there, will we? We'll be seeing you again next week, Derby fans. We did predict this one, or rather, you did. Southampton are taking legal action against their former shirt sponsor, LD Sports, after they pulled out of their 3-year deal.
Yes, LD Sports is a Chinese company, and at the time, it did look as if, given that the Chinese owner of Southampton, Gao Jisheng, was this something to do with supporting him? But at the time of the deal, all that LD Sports appeared to have was a website which was a work in progress and no products to actually sell. They signed a deal for £7.5 million a year. And they've taken the Vatican approach of pulling out early from that and not committing themselves to the next 2 years, which has caused Southampton two problems. First of all, that there's a loss of revenue problem. They've managed to replace LD Sports with a company called sportbet.io, which is, or Sportbet 10 perhaps. I'm not quite sure how I've read that. That's going to be, I believe, a significantly lower fee because it's now a buyer's market for front of shirt sponsorship. But also, what are Southampton going to do? Are they going to do the decent thing as far as fans who have bought the shirts with LD Sports? Personally, I think that they might have some novelty value or some rarity value. I wouldn't have mine replaced. I'd keep it. But there is a potential having to sort that out, and I don't know how many shirts they've sold to date. But at least they're not the Manchester United shirts which came out yesterday.
Whoa, they're astonishing, weren't they? If only we were a football kit pod, we'd be majoring on that big time. They were, if you haven't seen them, football fans, I urge you to Google. I'm not going to say other search engines are available like Guy wants me to, because they are, but no one uses them. So Google Man United's kit and be prepared for them. I wouldn't put it past you to wear a Southampton shirt either, Kieran, with your cavalier attitude to other football clubs. But a big so we've got two stories from north of the border coming up, which are both interesting stories, I think. And we've got your interview with Caroline Molyneux. But before that, there is a big story. And really looking at it, Guy should have put this when we were talking about the Premier League, because European clubs are also set to miss out on £500 million worth of revenue. Is that right? Because UEFA rebate to broadcasters?
Yes, yeah. This and I picked this up in the FT. The FT now have a football correspondent, but perhaps we ought to try to get them to sponsor us.
That'd be a good idea.
As we are the Premier business and sport. Or business and football podcast. So we'll get producer Guy to do some negotiations.
Yeah, let's not start tatting ourselves around live on air, Kieran. We haven't reached that stage yet. We're not Swiss Ramble, for God's sake. Come on now. Apologies. My apologies, Swiss. I don't know if Swiss touts himself around or not. Basically,
he's far too wealthy to have to need to do that. I can assure you.
I imagine so. Okay.
But what has happened with UEFA is that, they've had to give a €570 million euro rebate to broadcasters because whilst it was more exciting from our point of view, having matches decided on a one-leg basis, effectively just a single knockout for the quarterfinals and the semi-finals of both the Europa League and the Champions League. From the broadcaster's point of view, they go, hold on, it's fewer matches. So therefore, we want some dosh back. So that's going to be the first issue. I think that's going to be perhaps spread over a couple of years if the ECA, the European Club Association, managed to ask the broadcasters nicely. But also Agnelli, who is the president of president of Juventus, but also one of the big cheeses at the ECA. UEFA have done their sums, and we're looking at around about a 3.6 billion loss of match day revenue over the course of the 2 seasons, and that's going to hit the game horrendously. And it's going to hit the game in terms of cash. So, we've said this on more than one occasion. We're coming out of a tunnel in the form of the furlough and the tax delay repay issues. But we're coming out of a tunnel into an oncoming locomotive in the form of you're going to have to be paying money out and you've got no money coming in. So what's going to happen in order to deal with this? Nobody knows, but certainly I think the increase in restrictions, not just in the UK but across Europe, in terms of social gatherings is really bad news. For football, but for all sports, and we've said this, for everybody working in the service sector, the entertainment sector, and so on.
Yeah, of course. Well, talking of the entertainment sector, and this is a segue that Guy would have been proud of. I love this. The creator of the comic book, you're one of the cool granddads, Kieran, so you'll know all about Kick-Ass, the comic book and movie. Mark Miller. He's backing a major new project to bring Scottish football into fans' homes using robot cameras and artificial intelligence. Cool. And his plan is, he's an Albion Rovers fan. He wants to bring Albion Rovers to the living rooms of the world. And I mean, this sort of follows on from your prediction of streaming services, doesn't it, basically? But this is on a much more technical and quite exciting level, I have to say.
Yeah, I think this is we all like slightly loony stories, and this is, first of all, the fact that we've got this guy operating in a niche industry, and Kick-Ass is, if you've not seen the movie, make sure you do watch it. It's old school comic book stuff. He's developed, or is part of the development team, to have artificial intelligence cameras recording games, because the problem with streaming sort of using traditional means is that you need to have the cost of installing a camera crew, putting up all the ironwork and so on that goes into that at a match itself. Then you've got to have the camera crew, you've got to have the broadcast cameras, and all of these things, and that all costs money. So what Mark Miller's proposal is, and he's effectively sponsoring Albion Rovers in respect of this, is that the cameras will be installed effectively at the start of the season, and then they're going to be robot controlled, and the robots will learn the most important parts of the pitch, where the action's taking place, and so on. So therefore, whereas perhaps previously it would not have been financially feasible to stream matches from places like Albion Rovers, because realistically the number of people watching would be in the hundreds, perhaps 1,000 or two. Because your production costs will be significantly reduced, it still could just about make it worthwhile. And just as importantly, it allows fans to see the wee Rovers, as they are known in Scottish football. Yes,
indeed. Well, you've second-guessed me, because I was about to say that I believe that is our first mention of the wee Rovers. And I believe this is our first mention of another Scottish club who are nicknamed the Red Lichties. They really do have better nicknames up there, don't they? This is Arbroath, and they're nicknamed the Red Lichties, by the way, because of the red light that used to guide fishing boats into the harbour. What have Arbroath been up to? That's a sentence I didn't think I'd be using any time in my life, to be perfectly honest. But yes, Kieran, what have Arbroath been up to?
Well, I love what Arbroath are doing. Every few weeks, when they run out of money, they effectively have a whip round, and it looks as if if the fans manage to raise a few quid, then the directors say we'll match it and more, and we'll deal with that by issuing shares. So we now have had 9 share issues by the Red Lichties this year, this calendar year, and we're only just touched September. It's a little and often approach, but it to me it's a reflection of community football. It's 1,500 quid here, it's a couple of grand there, and so on. But it's allowing this club to continue to exist, and we don't want any football club to go out of business. It's not a club with a big support base, but as far as I'm concerned, Arbroath are showing a different approach, which also has an element of fan involvement, because the people putting the money in are the fans as well as the directors themselves.
So do you think, in general, Kieran, using your experience, would this be the same people buying more shares, or would they be looking to broaden that base and get more people involved when they issue shares on a monthly basis?
I think the majority of the shares will be going to the same people, because there's not that many individuals who do have spare cash. We are living in very severe economic times at present. It's just a good sign of a club which is aware of its circumstances. It's not trying to live beyond its means, and it's acknowledging the fact that without regular little wee investments, then it's going to go out of business. And hats off, and I wish them all the best with this.
Of course, we all do. They've got a really cool maroon kit as well. Now, this is the time, Kieran, when normally I would introduce an interview, and this time it's with Caroline Molyneux because we wanted to get her view on the confusion around Wigan, and then there would be a brief pause, and then we'd react to the interview. But we haven't done it yet, so we can't do all that. And in the interests of honesty with our listeners, we are doing it today. We were supposed to be doing it this morning, but she's been called to a meeting of the administrators, so more money for them. So hopefully we'll get that update. So it's a slightly odd end to the pod, Kieran, because we can't go, well, that was interesting. Wasn't Caroline hopping mad about the administrators? Because we don't know what the interview is going to be about. And I was trying to think of a clever way of doing that, and I thought, well, no, let's just be honest for once and admit that we haven't done it, and for the right reasons. Because, as I say, it might be that we're the first to be able to broadcast good news. So fingers crossed for that. And the good news, Kieran, of course, is that I'll be seeing you again. Well, not seeing you. That would be lovely to do that. I'll be seeing you again next Monday. It's Questions Day on Monday. If you have a question, Derby, I'm talking to Derby listeners in particular now. If you have a question for us, it's questions@priceoffootball.com. And as ever, it's over to Kieran for our closing words.
Well, once again, folks, thanks for all your reviews. Thanks for all the support you give us. If you do enjoy the show, I know we say this every time. We don't understand how it works, but apparently, according to Professor Guy, who is our leader, if you give us a review on the Apple Podcast app, and if you give us 5 stars, that'd be fantastic. It doesn't matter, however, what you say. You can say we need younger people, we need the Swiss Ramble here, we need anything apart from those two. But that makes no difference to the ratings. And we are trying to get guests. We are trying to make ends meet. We're not taking money out of this crazy show. But thanks again for all your support, and more importantly than that, stay safe and look after each other.
Hello, Caroline. Thanks for talking to us again. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Good evening, Kevin.
Good. I would say welcome back, but I'm not sure it's appropriate because when we last spoke, I was hoping we would only get you back in the best of circumstances. Now, we had to delay this interview today because you were called to a meeting of the administrators. How did it go?
Just lots more updates. I think, there are still bidders in the process, and basically we want to speak to anybody who's credible, the supporters club. We've raised this astounding, fantastic amount of money from the fans and beyond, and we need to be speaking to anybody who is credible in this process. So, hopefully next time I speak to you, we will have come to a solution.
Yeah, we talked on the pod last week about one potential bidder pulling out. How many credible bidders do you think there are, Caroline? I mean, are you able to tell us that, or would the administrators rather you kept that quiet?
No, I think they've come out and said that there are potentially 4 people in the process at the moment, but equally, I think people are sort of ringing up every day and asking to access the data room, and getting involved, and whether they're credible or not is difficult for the administrators to ascertain. And we never thought it would be what is now 9 weeks over 2 months, but we make sort of 5 steps forward and 10 steps back some days.
And do you know, I mean, we'll come on to the fundraising shortly, but we talked before, and you're all over social media with your fundraising. You talked about offering to buy a share in the club. How many of the potential bidders do you think would be interested in having the Supporters Association as co-owners or owners of any stake in the club at all?
I mean, we put out a statement earlier at the weekend that said that we had spoken to one of the potential credible bidders, and they were very interested in some sort of supporter share and working with the supporters club in Wigan to take the club forward. So, that, and at the moment, that is, that's the sort of bidder that I think is the one that's happy for us to talk about, it. Potentially, the administrators say that as soon as a bidder puts a firm bid in, the first thing they say is, would you be interested in talking to the supporters club? And no one has said no, particularly the fact that we've got that, really good financial stake that we can put into any football club, which at the moment, under the circumstances, is, something that's not many people have, because under the COVID circumstances, and obviously Boris has said tonight about potentially delaying the opening of stadiums, it's a really difficult time for everybody. So we think we've got a good, bargaining chip to get that share in the football club.
Now, obviously, you're up against a timescale here. You're due to play Ipswich away on Sunday. Will that happen? Yeah,
so one thing that we've heard tonight is one of the reasons why it was, such a meeting that we had to go to quite urgently, is that we wanted to find out if we're able to start the season. And whilst we can't say 100%, because the EFL have to make their sort of final say tomorrow, we are confident that we'll be able to go to Ipswich on Sunday. Everything's planned for it. Everything's booked, and the players are going to be making their way down there for the weekend. And so we are fairly confident and just awaiting EFL approval.
That's good. Now, obviously, Kieran and I got ourselves in a bit of a muddle recording the pod today, because we normally record interviews before we do the pod, but this time we tried to react to a pod to an interview that hadn't happened, and we got very confused. But which happens quite a lot to men our age. But so you won't have heard the fact that Kieran was talking about the administrators and legal advisors' fees. Basically, it's like £1 million basic for the administrators, 800,000 basic for legal advisors, with big potential bonuses on top if the sale of the club goes through. Is that something that you accept as part of business, or is that something that frustrates you when you're desperately trying to raise money to help the club, and so much money is going out on the administrators and legal fees, and subsequently agents' fees as well, presumably? Yeah,
it is very, very frustrating, and we have got to make sure that the money that we've raised is not, used for that reason. Obviously, when they sell the assets, the football club, that's, some of that money potentially could go to that. The problem we've got is you look at the administration of Bolton, you look at different clubs, and that is what the business they're in is. It's just so expensive, and it is ridiculous and very frustrating, and that's why we're on a time scale, because obviously the longer they're in, the longer those fees stack up. So whilst they're not here to run the football club, they are doing, but they're not. That's not why they're here. They're here to get in, sell the assets, sell the club, and get out. And we are trying to work with them to try to make that happen sooner rather than later. And it's been a very frustrating process for everybody concerned, I think. But yeah, the fees of administrators, they tell us it's a risky job. There's a risk involved in it, and that's why the fees need to be so high.
Well, funny enough, we talked about that on the pod, Kieran and I, because my, being a naive individual, you'd imagine any job an administrator goes into is risky. To suddenly announce halfway through that it's more risky than they thought it would be is slightly annoying, I think. But it seems like, you're going to go into the new season with a new manager by the look of things, aren't you?
I heard reports today. There's nothing been confirmed as far as I'm aware. We certainly go into the new season with potentially Liam Richardson as manager on Sunday. With regards to anything else, I'm not sure if there will be anyone else in place for Sunday.
Right. Okay. Now, your fundraising has been nothing short of amazing, Caroline. It really has. From a position of naught, it's been an example for all of us, really. Tell us just how much you've raised, and also tell us a little bit about some of the high-profile ex-Wigan players that have helped you. And one in particular today made his donation known, didn't he? Yeah, so we've now surpassed £660,000 on the second crowdfunder, which in total we've raised £860,000 to
helped to save the football club in one way or another. And when I say we, it is thousands of Wiganers, including people donating £1, people, young children riding their bike around the stadium to raise money, and they're the heroes of this. And then, of course, we had a sort of a drive over one weekend. I have to mention Joffy, so Joe Gellart. Him and his mum donated £1,000 and got us kicking off with the players. Fantastic young man. Yeah. Obviously, we had to sell him to Leeds, which broke our hearts, and he just wanted to help. And he was the first player to donate to us, and then it just started a landslide. And all the players who'd left, who are still with us, Anthony Robinson, even Roberto Martinez, gave us £5,000 towards the appeal. And today, of course, we've had an anonymous pledger who we managed to persuade to go a little bit more public, and that was Victor Moses, and he's given us £20,000 today, which is absolutely unbelievable.
Well, I have to say, he's a very well brought up young man. I mean, he came through a very lovely football club. So what else would you expect from him? It's just a sign. I think there's an awful amount of goodwill in the football world towards Wigan. I mean, so many football fans understand that in this environment, their club could be the next to go through this, and it's brilliant to see the level of support that you're getting. How are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of optimism? And we've spoken several times in the past 10, 12 weeks, and I wish there was another word that describes something that goes up and down rather than roller coaster.
Yeah.
But where are you at the moment, do you think, on that particular ride?
Well, I think it's more like a bungee jump that never stops, to be honest, because, it really is. You think that one day you come into some sort of solution, and then literally the next day something else happens. I work full time as well, and
yeah, of course.
Sometimes the list of things that I've got to update people on just runs off the page because things change so quickly. So I have to keep going, and I have to keep being optimistic. And the supporters club, the people who are working behind the scenes to try to make something happen, including Jonathan at the football club and all the committee. We've got to stay positive. We've got to try and fight for the football club because, no one else is doing that in this situation.
And it's strange, people who don't understand football, Caroline, won't understand that your day-to-day working life is affected by this. As I remember when Palace were in danger of going out in 2010, I couldn't concentrate. I was supposed to be writing jokes for TV shows, and you're constantly checking your phone. You're constantly listening to news updates to find out what's going on. And it sort of takes over your life, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, you've described exactly what it does. But hopefully it won't be forever. And when we come out of this, we'll have something much better and much more positive in terms of what the supporters want out of Wigan Athletic. And we'll just make sure that all the terrible, and they are terrible things that have happened to Wigan. We've been stripped of every player that we love. The manager's left us. We've got no money in the account. It's incredible. But at the end of all this, hopefully we'll just look back and think, well, at least we came out of it and we did it together as supporters.
Yeah, well, please God that will happen. And I hope, Caroline, that the next time we speak, it will be by way of a celebration, actually, and we can have a glass of champagne at each end of our 200-mile socially distanced phone call. Our good wishes go with you, along with the good wishes of every football fan in the country, Caroline. So good luck and keep us in touch.
Thank you. Thanks, Kevin.
The price of football. The price of football.